Welcome back, everyone, to Talking TEAM-CBT. I'm super excited. We have one of my level 4 endorsers, Leigh Harrington. Welcome, Dr. Leigh.
Hello. Hi, Angela. It's so great to see you. And I'm excited for us to talk team and life.
Well, Leigh, to get us started, why don't you tell us, how did you get into TEAM?
Yes, I did my residency at Stanford. So I trained with David. That's how I ran into David. And he was an individual supervisor of mine for my psychotherapy patients. Before TEAM was TEAM, he hadn't developed the acronym TEAM yet. He was working on like the agenda setting, right? The core of TEAM. And a lot of the pieces were already there. But yeah, he was putting TEAM together like right at that time when he was my supervisor. And so I grew, under him and with him, and learned about TEAM as it developed.
Neat.
Evolved. Keeps evolving.
Yeah, it does keep evolving. What was that like to be part of an evolving experience? Did that feel off-putting that this guy didn't have his act together, or?
Oh, no, he had his act together. He always had his act together. It's just like all of us. We all have our act together. We get it together and together and together, more and more together, right? So
yeah, true.
yeah. I mean, he was brilliant when I met him, and he just kept, like living an amazing life and wanting to continue to contribute. He just kept becoming more brilliant and creating more, right? Creating more around the model and making it stronger and more impactful for people.
Yeah, I think it's just, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I think one of the ways to make it so impactful is to observe its effectiveness, right? And observe, where can it be even more effective? Where can it be even more effective? Where can we be even more effective, right? How can we do this even, with, the testing piece was already, he was already suggesting us using the testing piece. So I was using the testing piece, which is a core of TEAM, and empathy. And that agenda setting is just like, wow, on top of those two already powerful pieces and the methods.
Yeah, I think there's this expectations. I don't know so much from therapists, but often with clients and maybe even therapists and general public, but this idea that, well, if you've found something that works, then it's just going to be what works. And the idea that it's constantly evolving and expanding and becoming more effective, I think is a bit of a new idea, because in some ways we're like, okay, we know what heart disease looks like. And then for like 10 years, the surgery just kind of remains the same. And there might be some advances in medical technology, but for the most part, it's kind of like, this is how you diagnose, this is how you test, this is how you treat. And of course, what our listeners may not realize is mental illness is not really the same idea. You can't just do a blood test. And so we do have to evolve the tools, because we don't even know necessarily the cluster of symptoms, those labels change. So yeah, it's kind of great that you were able to embrace that concept of just continuing to add great things as he dished them out.
Oh, yes. He's had tons of amazing tools to dish out, and yeah, I think that it's similar. There was a lot of stability, and then there's growth and stability and growth and stability and growth, and both of those things it's good to have both, right? It's good to have stability, solidifying things, maybe tweaking them, getting them like a little bit more firm and solid, and then like, oh, we can also do this, we can also do that, we can also do this, and look at the depth that this brings, and look at the like joy that this brings, and look at the way facing fears this way like increases your sense of freedom, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my favorite tool he developed only about 1.5 years ago which is Explain the Distortions. Now, I mean, he kind of did it intuitively with Identify the Distortions, but it's like expanded, and well, that's why it's Expand the Distortions, Explain the Distortions, but it's pretty cool. You mentioned this agenda setting, and you also mentioned in your interview form that you love doing agenda setting even for those not doing therapy. What do you mean by that? How do you do agenda setting for those who are not doing therapy?
Oh, yes. was probably thinking about in my like prescribing practice, because I'm a psychiatrist as well as a therapist. So I do, in my therapy, in my private practice work, I work with people often who are facing anxiety or depression, habits, relationships issues. In my prescribing practice, I work in an underserved area in a county. So I have clients who have schizophrenia or sometimes bipolar, sometimes other issues, sometimes PTSD, also depression and anxiety. And I think that the idea of agenda setting to me is really about one, like being respectful, right? Being respectful of the person that you're working with and respecting that we're here to serve them. Like we're here to help them have their most incredible life, the way their most incredible life looks to them, not the way it looks to me, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not here to impose my idea of what they should do in their life and what their life should look like. But if they have an image of what they'd like to look, their life to look like, my job is to have the tools and know how to implement and help them like create that, help them live that, help them have that come into being, right? So one is like being respectful of their wishes for their goals. And the other part is being like mutual and collaborative, right? Being on their team about that. So they get to choose, and then I join their team for creating their vision, right? And that plays out in therapy, and it also plays out in medicine in general, and in psychiatry in my particular case, in that the person that I'm working with, they get to choose how they want their life, and I'm here to have my expertise. What we're required to bring is our expertise and our knowledge and our recommendations for what we think, the tools that we have that we think could help them, live that life that they want to live, right? To get to where they're going. And then they are there to decide whether they want to pick them up, whether they want to use them, whether any particular tool is like clicking for them and working for them and helping them advance towards where they want to go, or whether it's not. And so in my mind, our agenda setting is about doing those things, honoring the person where they are at right now. And for us all to be aware, all being them and me, be aware of all the good reasons they got to where they are right now, right? There's always a good reason where any of us are at right now. Even if we think we want to be somewhere else, there's some advantage or some benefit to being where we are now. Mm-hmm. And if we aren't aware of that, that'll be like this underlying tug, that is going to kind of pull us back. So you want to be aware of that. And the same thing happens in prescribing, right? If I'm like, see someone and they tell me what's going on for them and the pain that they're in, the suffering that they're having, and the relief that they're wanting to have, and I just say, okay, and I kind of push something on them, right? Here, this medication, do this. That's not how we approach things in team. And that's not how we approach things if we're using agenda setting, when we're being respectful and collaborative with someone. So just as we might talk with someone in therapy, someone who has fears that they want help facing, right? We might talk about all the good reasons not to face those fears, and the fact that it'll be scary to face those fears, right? And like we're gonna have to go to the other side of something we don't know what it is, which is usually like amazing, which is the greatest thing. I love doing that work with people. But there still we'll have to face some discomfort. And the same thing when I'm prescribing medications to someone, when someone's talking with their doctor about prescribing medications or about a procedure or anything else, right? That we're going to a physician for some expertise. We want their recommendations, right? Someone will want the recommendations of me as their psychiatrist to suggest a medication, but there may be reasons they don't want to take that medication, right? And so being cognizant of those, being aware of those, honoring the person's concerns, honoring their concerns and their hesitations, and speaking to those really respectfully and collaboratively.
Yeah, I love how respectful it really is. And I love that you're using that word. And I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine you're not talking just about the reason they might not want to do the medication as side effects. I imagine you're talking about something deeper than that.
Exactly. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Certainly, there might be someone who has a fear of a side effect, right? Oh, this might make me sleepy, or it might have other side effects that they're concerned about. But they might not like the idea of taking a pill, right? There might be in all of our life, we're making meaning of things, right? And cognitive behavioral therapy speaks to that, right? We often say that, the thoughts that we have, right? The thoughts that we have are like the meaning that we're making, the story that we're telling ourselves about something. So someone might be telling themselves a story like, if I take this pill, it means something negative, right?
It's a cop out, or I failed in some way.
Yes, it could be any of those and more, right? I'm a failure. Something's wrong with me. I'm weak, or and those are real concerns that we want to address. It's understandable that people have those concerns. And my hope for someone who decides to take a medication is that I don't usually suggest someone or prescribe to someone unless I really think it will help them and serve them, right? So I need to not be like frivolously just prescribing things. But if someone gets a prescription, I hope that they're going to take it and be like, I am helping myself right now, and that almost everything, if we use the experimental technique, which is a CBT technique, and we apply that mindset of the experimental technique to our life, like our life opens up. I often tell people, like, if you decide to take this medication today, it doesn't mean you're taking it forever. It, like, we're making the decision now, and you're not locked into it, right? It's an opportunity to try this as a tool that can help you get where you want to go, and an opportunity you're not locked into. The door is always open.
And this might not be able to answer this in a short period of time, but I'm just curious. We talked about how they might not want to take this medication for good reasons, and maybe they'll feel ashamed or like they're not quite measuring up or something. How do you turn that into something positive? What does that look like?
Yeah, so if someone is hesitant about taking a medication, an example I think of is someone who has bipolar and may feel a lot of like hypomania, right? And hypomania is like excellent. At least that's the impression I have. It feels wonderful. And someone might not want to give that up, right? And because perhaps during those times when they feel hypomanic, not only do they feel good, but maybe they're super productive, maybe they're super loving, maybe they're super giving, maybe they have all these aspects and pieces of them that they value that they don't want to give up, right? Yeah. Even someone who feels self-conscious about taking medication, shame, for example, or something like that, they might feel that because they have a value of like self-reliance, of resilience, of strength, value those things. And so we want to notice and appreciate, look for and see those values that are underlying. There are always beautiful values underlying anything we're doing, even if it ends up like from the outside looks kind of misdirected, right? A parent might be like, I want my child to take these medications, right? And from the parent's point of view, the child is making a decision that doesn't make sense, and almost always are making decisions that make sense from some value perspective.
Right.
It's a value that they're wanting to hold on to.
That's kind of, the core values are what drive us. And in TEAM-CBT and in cognitive behavior therapy in general, the idea is to try and bring those to conscious awareness and make an intellectual choice, rational choice, and still hold on to the values, but go, okay, wait a minute. I don't need to let these values hold me back or steer me in the wrong direction. You talked, we know exactly. you're a doctor and you're a therapist, and you're also a coach, and you're doing some new projects, and you're going to actually be teaching team to business people. How is that going to work? What are you going to be doing with people in business?
Oh, I'm so excited about this, Angela. Yes. So I've been doing training and consulting for a long time. We started a TEAM-CBT training group outside of Stanford back in like 2009, maybe. And up in Sacramento. And so I've been doing trainings for some times. I love doing them one-on-one and coaching people towards their level 4, as well as doing group trainings and those sort of things. And this spring, in March, the end of March, beginning of April, Poland is bringing back another TEAM-CBT intensive. Poland did their first European Union TEAM-CBT intensive in August, and the end of March they are doing another one. Popular demand. They thought who headed the project was like, oh, I don't know, we'll do this again, and then less than a year later he's like, they just wanted so much. And there are a lot of people in business who are finding the benefit of tools like gathering data, like empathy, relationship building, connection, rapport, respect, the ability to authentically and quickly build rapport and to get back on track. I think that oftentimes people are like, oh, just stay on track. That's really good and important. Excellent, right? We all of us are like, let's stay on track, right?
Especially those who are task oriented.
Right? The great things about TEAM is it helps you get back on track when you fall off, which is really a muscle that's so helpful for us to build and so valuable, like when we have it ourselves and when we can share that with our patients. So those tools, as well as the agenda setting tools, being respectful and collaborative with people, honoring the values that underlie their decisions and looking for those, like when my employee does something that doesn't make sense to me, figuring out like, where's the good place that came from, and then redirecting that energy in a way that's going to contribute to our team and our organization and all of the people that we're serving, right? And then there's so many excellent methods that can help all of us regulate, feel joy, overcome fears, have closer relationships, get our habits in order, like get a winning mindset, right? Have successful habits, conquer fears. I think in the business world, there's this kind of coming of AI, right? Of artificial intelligence, GPT, huge thing now, which I think people fear, right? Fear is common. And I asked ChatGPT the other day, what do employees do if they're like worried about losing their jobs? With the advent of AI and ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told me, that the emotional intelligence, like those are the places, the interpersonal skills, the self-regulation skills, those are the skills that are really going to be super valued. We might have a change where it used to be that the people who kind of got ahead were the people who had these high IQs, and it may be like the high EQ is going to be even more valuable in our world. That's something that I think the business people in business, either leading organizations, creating organizations, managing employees, can benefit from, can strengthen. And I think we can all strengthen those skills, and myself included. I love to continue to improve those skills and share with others, improving those skills, because it's so fun, overcoming fear. Like, it's just to get a sense of freedom and empowerment, and it's just, there's nothing better to feel and to give to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be so afraid of fear, strong emotophobia. And now if I get a little bit of anxiety, I get really excited because I don't have it very often anymore. So when I get it, I'm like, ooh, I have some anxiety. This is exciting. Which then kind of makes it turn to excitement and not anxiety anymore. But, we haven't all arrived. And I know you mentioned in your interview form that there's times where you haven't totally, it's helped you tremendously into personal relations, but it's not like you have zero anxiety all the time. And I know you do shame attacking stuff, and
I
there's
do.
so much more I wanted to cover, but we are out of time. But we have our last question, which is, if all the team therapists in the world, and I'm going to alter this, if all the business people in the world were listening, what's something about team you'd like them to know?
Oh, I think that it can offer them a sense of freedom, personal mastery, and a sense of something to offer to their employees and colleagues.
Oh,
yeah.
I know I threw you a curveball because I had worded the question differently on the forum, but that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here today with us, and hope you'll join us again. Hopefully, we'll be doing these interviews well into the future.
It's brilliant. I'm so glad you're doing this, Angela, too. It's an idea that played in my mind, and so I was so glad to see it actually.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel was the one that came to me, and I had something kind of on the lines of this, but this was kind of his concept, and having the key question at the end, which is really great. It's been a great journey. So for those of you listening, please go back, listen to some of the past ones. We even have David Burns himself in one of the interviews, and many others. So feel free to watch the rest of our episodes. Thank you much for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Bye, Angela. Thank you.